owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, I hope the day finds you well, because we have gathered to talk about the massive wave of spoiler action that has just crashed down on the shores of Magic. Wizards of the Coast has just blessed us with not only spoiler cards and the commander decks from Warhammer 40k, but on top of that, spoilers from Double Masters 2022. So we're going to start out with the unique situation surrounding the Warhammer 40k commander decks. There are going to be 4 commander decks, but they're going to get parallel variant releases that we've never seen before under the umbrella of Collector's Edition, right? So you can see on the screen that all we really know so far is there are some cosmetic differences between the products, right? They're both Necron Dynasty decks, mono black on the screen. With the regular version of the commander deck, you get the normal colored in artwork featuring the commander of the deck. That will be obviously one of the more well-known Necrons. And if you don't know who the Necrons are, they're essentially people who were once flesh, who were forced to turn themselves into robots. They kind of slumber deep in planets that they consider to be their own homes. Other people will come and settle on those planets. The Necrons wake up, they're angry, battle ensues, and the Necrons are like, yo, we're gonna go and reconquer the entire universe because it belongs to us. It's pretty epic, and honestly, them being artifact creatures and going mono black, it kind of evokes a Phyrexian tie-in to a degree with a similar kind of flavor, right? But ultimately, it is mostly cosmetic, just the box stuff that we know. The Collector's Edition box does look more imposing with the zoomed in black and white artwork and with the little Necron symbol up in the corner. So they did add a couple of extra little frills to it, but ultimately, you're going to expect the contents of the Collector's Edition deck to be like loaded down with foils and premium versions. I don't know if it'll have identical cards or if they will literally straight up improve the deck as well. That's why this is fascinating, because we've never seen anything like it. Now, let's take a look at the second deck. This one is based around the forces of the Imperium. So you've got the Empire of Man that is led by an emperor who is, I believe, at least like 10,000 years old, some crazy amount of years old. But he's so old that he has to stay on his throne all the time, right? He's like super powerful, but he's not going to be getting up and dancing around for you or doing anything like that, right? He's like the figurehead of the entire empire. So it makes sense to have the forces of the Imperium. This one is blue, white, and black. I mean, Warhammer is a dark universe. This artwork here, I don't know specifically what kind of profession this is showing, because admittedly, I only know a bit about Warhammer 40k. Like, I know enough that when I was watching the Twitch stream and they called it Warhammer 40,000, I was like, man, that really does hit your ear weird, doesn't it? But anyways, same kind of deal with the Collector's deck. You've got the symbol for the Imperium up there. Let's move on to the third factions deck. This is the Tyranids. Now, when I actually tried Warhammer 40k way back in the day, these were the guys I went with. The Tyranids are a crazy organism. Well, they're not really an organization. They're just the massive insectile alien threat that looms out there in the not the multiverse, out in the universe, right? I guess the multiverse now too, depending on how you overlap it. But they essentially just go looking for planets to eat. They're just like, yo, is there biomass on this planet? Great. They fly around in gigantic like spaceships that are also bio-insects. It's wild, man. They have crazy regenerative powers and big, crazy, thick carapaces and everything. They just really appealed to me right away. So, I mean, the game didn't go well for me, but ultimately, I thought that the Tyranids were really impressive as a kid. And I mean, look at the artwork on the box. Look at that thing. Is that not incredibly intimidating? Those things land down on your planet. Eventually, just all life will be turned into like mulch mass for them to consume so they can take over other planets. It's just insane. Just keep consuming. So you got red, blue, and green. That's weird. It's weird to me that blue is in there. I would have felt like Tyranid would be red, green, maybe black. Blue is an interesting choice. But anyhow, that is the third faction. And then the final faction is the Chaos faction. So these are like the forces of men and other beings that have come under the sway of the different chaos gods, right? And all these chaos gods feed on different kinds of, like, they have sort of an alliance in that they all kind of somewhat work together, but they also work against each other because they can't help themselves and they're like demonic gods. It's crazy. But you can see, not only do we get the actual deck of the ruinous powers, which is red, black, blue, but we also get our first genuine spoiler card in the form of Abaddon the Despoiler. So 1 red, 1 black, 1 blue, and 2 for a 5/5 legendary creature, Astartes warrior. Now, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but the Astartes are essentially space marines, right? So they're soldiers that were bred by the Empire using crazy genetic like technology that allows them to have extra organs in their bodies and things like that. As far as I understand it, they implant like a gene seed or something into a space marine's body, and it fundamentally alters them so they're way more hardy. They can grow extra organs, they can survive like more poisons and things. That just makes them overall better soldiers, right? So I guess they decided that they wanted to make that into like the creature type concept, which makes sense to me. It fits better than just going space marine, right? So 5/5 trample, and Abaddon has Mark of Chaos Ascendant. During your turn, spells you cast from your hand with mana value X or less have Cascade, where X is the total amount of life your opponents have lost this turn. So this is obviously designed to say, yo, get stuck into combat, right? You want to be swinging in, or at the very least, you want to be blasting your opponent with burn spells or something. You want to be making them lose life, because the more life you lose, the bigger spells you can cast that you will get Cascade from. And if you're not familiar with Cascade, well, it basically will let you play spells off the top of your deck for free that cost less than that, right? So if you cast a spell that costs 5 and then you go Cascade with it, start flipping over cards off the top of your deck until you hit a card that costs 4, play it for free kind of deal. So this is a really solid ability. I mean, a 5/5 trample, he feels big and intimidating. And I have to admit, in terms of like the difference between Magic the Gathering artwork and like the traditional Magic the Gathering swords and sorcery, and the more obviously way more high-tech end that Warhammer can kind of encompass, this one right here actually, if you don't pay too much attention to it, could easily fit into a regular Magic style world. Abaddon doesn't specifically look like he's using like high technology. He could just be wearing like stylized Baroque armor, right? And that sword that he's holding could be a magical blade. Now, you know, the Space Marines behind him and everything, that their hands on the actual like bolters and stuff, that does really pull it back to 40k, which is the point with it. But at the same time, this one really stuck out to me as how easy you could just go, this could really feel like an epic legendary creature from Magic way back in the day, right? Now, next card we have is insane. Blood for the Blood God! Oh, Corn loves it, man. This is the corniest Magic card ever. 1 red, 2 black, and 11 mana. Now that is a casting cost, boy. It's an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. So if 8 creatures go, then boom, you can cast this for 3 mana. And at 3 mana, it becomes an insane deal. So discard your hand, then draw 8 cards. Blood for the Blood God, I love the exclamation mark there in the name and in the text box, deals 8 damage to each opponent. Exile blood for the Blood God. And it says skulls for the Skull Throne. So, from like a mechanical standpoint, the more creatures that go, I mean, you're playing this in Commander, right? So you can get a decent amount of creatures getting smoked off the board in 1 turn. And once you get this down cheap enough, it gets insane. Even at something like 5 mana, pitch your hand, draw 8 cards, smack everybody for 8. That's nutty, right? I just feel like this is so crazily easy to get down to a cheap casting cost. I mean, in Commander, yeah, 8 damage isn't quite as beefcake as in a 2-player like we each have 20 game, but still, I love this card. It just feels so good for its big, beefy casting cost, slamming each opponent hard, drawing a massive new hand of stuff, all feels great. But also the flavor of this is awesome, man. Khorne is one of the chaos gods, right? And he's basically about two things: blood and skulls, right? He just wants people dead. He wants their blood and he wants their skulls. Like, he doesn't even care about them suffering. In fact, that's not really keen to his plans, because that can end up helping the other chaos gods instead. He's literally just like, yo, bring me all the skulls because I need them for my chair. I have a chair made out of skulls. It's amazing. And this artwork, these bodies are basically space marines, right? This is a bunch of the Astartes, and they are laid out in the symbol of Khorne. So if you're not aware of what's going on here, all on the outer edges, you have these flaming bodies that are like the demons of Khorne and the fires that have been started by their demonic flames. And arranged in the middle is a bunch of wiped out space marines who are left in a symbol of tribute to the chaos god of skulls. Like, this is so epic from the flavor perspective of Warhammer 40k, right? Like I said, I'm not massively into Warhammer 40k, but I absolutely love this. Moving on, we've got Vanguard Suppressor. So this is 1 blue and 3 for a 3/2 Astartes warrior. It has Squad 2. Now, Squad 2 is creature token kicker, basically multi-kicker, really. So, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may pay 2 any number of times. When this creature enters the battlefield, create that many tokens that are copies of it. So, for example, if you paid 4 additional mana, then you would get to make 2 additional copies. So it's a 3/2 flyer, and it has suppressing fire. Whenever Vanguard Suppressor deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And you can see the token is shown here as pretty much the same individual. If you take a look at the artwork, you can see it's the same kind of gear that's being used. They just kind of even have, like, it's pretty much overall the same individual, I think, right? No, maybe not. They don't have the same painting on their knee pad, but one shown with a helmet on, one shown with the helmet off. Overall, I have to say, out of all the cards so far, this is the most very obvious, like, yo, you are not in the normal realm of Magic anymore. You are on the realm of, like, flamethrower Warhammer 40k. So in terms of delivering Warhammer 40k flavor, this 100% nails it. Admittedly, as I've said in the past, this isn't 100% my cup of tea in terms of Magic flavor, but when I divorce myself from that, I actually do enjoy the card as a concept here, right? The idea of them coming in as a squad, it definitely feels like Warhammer 40k to me. So it's successful in that level of execution, right? Now, there's the reprint as well of this Fabricate that is not specifically in the Commander decks. This is a promo, okay? So it's 1 blue and 2 for a sorcery, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And I feel like, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like the dude depicted in this artwork is part of a Martian, like, pseudo-mechanical, pseudo-religious, like, he's like a mech cleric, something along those lines. That's what I think these guys are. They're the mech clerics of the Imperium. And considering how much they're based on technology, fabricating, like, servitors and all this kind of stuff, it makes perfect sense to me. So this also ties perfectly in to the Warhammer 40k world and flavor. Now, let's move on to talking about Double Masters 2022 with the gigantic ELDRAZI. So, Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, is confirmed for Double Masters 2022. Wow, Double Masters 2022 symbol really does look pretty much like Double Masters original symbol, which I guess isn't that bad because it makes it easier to bunch them together overall. But anyways, 10 mana gets you a 12/12 legendary ELDRAZI. When you cast this spell, draw 4 cards, Annihilator 4, so whenever it attacks, defending player sacrifices 4 permanents, and when Kozilek is put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library. These cards are insane. The ability at the end where it's meant to stop you from, like, reanimating Kozilek is just an extra bonus as well, where it's like, sure, you can't reanimate it, but I also serve to keep putting your cards back in your deck too. Like, the ELDRAZI are some of the most famous, beloved, and just stupidly broken creatures around, right? Annihilator is absolutely insane. And we can see here in the middle, they have brought in the most intense looking Kozilek ever. He really does. He encapsulates the otherworldly nature of the Eldrazi so much more, right? Like the Eldrazi have a Cthulian kind of nature. It's obviously borrowed from that kind of a world, right? And they exist outside of the multiverse, where only part of their essence reaches into the multiverse. It's been described kind of like you've got like a bathtub full of water, and if you were to dip like your finger into the water, then that like your finger in the water would be the equivalent of the Eldrazi itself, its presence in the multiverse. Like they can't be contained in the multiverse. This is just a sliver of the creature. It's just crazy and mind-blowing, right? But when you look at the two side by side, the original Kozilek artwork, where yeah, he's intense, right? He's this gigantic, towering beast that almost feels like he doesn't have a head because of how sunken it is with that weird cyclops. Like, it's like somebody chopped his neck out or something. Or either that, or all he's been doing is going to the gym and working on neck day. Like, he never misses neck day. But then when you look at the Kozilek in the middle, you're just like, this is a nightmare incarnate. It's literally warping reality around it. It's super intense artwork, man. This is incredible. Now, there's something else to note about Double Masters 2022, and that is there are a ton of foil etched cards in this one. So basically, as far as I understand, all the rares and mythic rares are up to be foil etched. And that's when you actually end up with flattened versions of the card. It remains to be seen whether the etched foils are like as shiny as the original ones, where it looked like they had basically had nail polish applied to them, super glitter style. Anyways, moving on. Next reprint, Wrenn and 6. 1 green and 1 red for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. +1 ability is return up to 1 target land card from your graveyard to your hand. -1 ability, Wrenn and 6 deals 1 damage to any target. -7, you get an emblem with instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard have retrace. And retrace allows you to discard a land card from your hand to cast the spell from your graveyard. So essentially, when you've activated the ultimate ability, your lands can be pitched from your hand to cast instants and sorceries from your graveyard. You still have to pay their casting costs, but it's a very powerful effect. Wrenn and 6 was originally in the first Modern Horizon set, and it blew up because it's absolutely insane, right? Like, when you first read it, it may not be as evident as like how powerful it was if you've never seen it in action, but it has proven how strong the card is. And the story behind Wrenn and 6, the flavor behind it, is really cool as well. Wrenn is an individual who basically is a dryad whose entire society was like caught on fire. Like the forest that they're from, if you don't know, dryads link up with trees, obviously, in this artwork that's going on, right? But Wrenn came from a home forest. Normally dryads can't leave their trees, right? But there was this massive forest fire that was basically burning down Wrenn's home. And Wrenn somehow managed to draw the fire that was raging through her home into herself. And at the same time, it like ignited her planeswalker spark and gave her the ability to merge with other trees than her original tree, but they had to be special trees. Basically, the trees will sing out to her. So that is how she finds her new homes. And so we have Wrenn and 6 here, but there's actually a Wrenn and 7 card as well. If you're interested in hearing about the transition of Wrenn and 6 becoming Wrenn and 7, I did a lore video about it over on Fantasy Geographic, so I'll link it at the end of this video for you, because it is a very funky idea, and also it ties into Fairy too, which is cool for the upcoming Dominaria United. But let's move on to the next thing we're going to talk about. And that actually, sorry, before we do that, I just want to say real quick that I appreciate the alternate artwork that's in the middle there with the little bushy-headed version, just kind of like almost hugging around Wrenn and 6, reaching out the same way she is. I don't know. It's a different position. Anyways, moving on. Liliana of the Last Hope. Nope, just Liliana of the Last Hope. 2 black and 1, 3 loyalty planeswalker, +1, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-1 until your next turn. -2, mill 2 cards, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, and -7, you get an emblem with at the beginning of your end step, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. So you just basically make an endless amount of zombies. Just keep making them. And the artwork depicts Liliana with the chain veil floating above her hand. Unfortunately, we will never get a satisfying conclusion to the chain veil story because Wizards of the Coast has decided to just kind of toss that one off to the side and say, we're done with it. Liliana made a contract with all these demons, went through all this stuff, got the chain veil to break out of it and all this stuff. It's a super powerful item. Oh, it's tied into all this stuff. And then she's just like, yeah, you know what? Here, you have it. A little bit of a weird choice. But I really, really love the borderless version of this Liliana. She looks awesome. There's just something about the posing. She's got her hand thrown up with the waves of magic kind of coruscating down behind her in waves, and you've got these undead that are flowing forth, and a new one is like being pulled up under her command. She's got her hand on its head. Just, oh, it's so good. This is such good artwork and an interesting include. There were people who thought it was going to be Liliana the Veil. I was one of them, actually, when we saw that this artwork was going to be part of it. But anyways, this is a really cool include. Now, they are also bringing in a few different release promos. Understand, there won't be a pre-release for this. So we have the Weathered Wayfarer and Bring to Light that are release event promos. Basically, they're going to have a special event using Double Masters 2022, but they won't send out special pre-release kits to go with it. You'll just end up using Double Masters product. So you've got Weathered Wayfarer and Bring to Light, which are both cards that are in Double Masters 2022. So they're promos and inside the set. Weathered Wayfarer is your 1-white, 1/1 human nomad cleric. I always was tickled pink by his triple creature types. Anyways, 1 white and tap him, search your library for a land, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. You can activate only if an opponent controls more lands than you. In a commander game, where you've got a bunch of opponents, it is way easier to meet these conditions. And I really like the artwork for this one. Honestly, this Wayfarer he's got kind of like an intense vibe to him. He looks like he could do more than, he feels like he's more than a 1/1. But I really like the fact that the artwork looks like he's being depicted restoring a place. Like, remember, his ability doesn't say basic land type. It just says for a land card. So he can bring anything back. So he's just this wandering nomad who goes to these different sites and restores the land. That's cool, man. And he's got an intense, stoic look on his face, too. Or is he just looking at you like, come on, do something. What you gonna do? And then you've got Bring to Light, where you've got the shyest merfolk boy in Magic. Don't be shy, merfolk boy. What do you have to show me? Bring it on into the light. What is going on? What is up with this dude? He's so like, oh no, I'm so shy. I wanted to ask you to the Harry Potter dance, but I just... Anyways, Bring to Light is 1 blue, 1 green, and 3 for a sorcery with Converge. Search your library for a creature, instant, or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. Exile that card, then shuffle. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So you can go and get a spell. I guess if you have 5 different colors of mana, you can go and get a spell that costs up to 5 and then play it for free, right? Well, without paying its mana cost. So, I mean, it's got like a tutor effect built into it. Do people use this? I feel like maybe I'd need to see it in action because this one feels underwhelming to me. But I imagine Wizards making it a promo means people probably use it. And I know Weathered Wayfarer is great. So, I don't know. Anyways, we have the other versions of them as well. You can see the regular Weathered Wayfarer and the etched version. And honestly, I have to say specifically, first of all, with Bring to Light, the artwork of the original, I like it way better. It feels so much more epic than the artwork we just saw. Like the nervous little merfolk boy doesn't really, it doesn't really say much to me, but this is like, is this a city being pulled apart? Something brought back together? Is this a mage who's literally in search of knowledge and they're just like tearing a place apart to get it? Like, I will unearth it by pulling this ancient keep down from like the buried location it's in. That's crazy. And then look at the foil etched frame too, where you get the green and blue border instead of the gold border, right? Like, it looks cool on the Weathered Wayfarer, but on the gold cards where they instead decide to differentiate them into the two different color separations, for me, that is a big win. Like, that's a cool way to do it that makes it step out an extra level above the others. So, my friends, that wraps up all of the spoilers we have to talk about today. I hope you found it interesting. That's not all the information that was revealed today. That's just everything I could cram into today's video. I have a bunch of other spoilers to talk about. We will do that another time. Up on the screen is the link to the video that I promised you, and I will see you, my friends, in the next video. Big thank you to my patrons.